Everyone, today's lesson is on different types of liberalism. Obviously, you've done the previous work on liberalism, all the videos and the first PowerPoint. I'm trying to do some videos for you so that there's a little bit more explanation attached to the PowerPoint. So hopefully this will make it easier for you to learn from home. There are some activities to do as you go along. So I've emailed you all of the pictures of the textbook that you'll need to complete the activities. If you can't access them or you haven't received them, then just email me and I'll send them over to you. So we're looking today at the different strands of liberalism and how they're similar and different. So from the videos that you watched, you might have noticed already that there are two main strands, classical and modern. So we need to be able to compare them. So firstly, classical liberalism is associated with the 18th and 19th century, and classical liberals prize freedom above all other values. If you think about the word liberalism, it's associated with freedom, being liberal or free. And so therefore they try to promote anything that enhances individual freedom. This links to the power of government. They don't want the government to be overly powerful. They want to restrict the power of government, because if government is too powerful, it can actually control us or restrict our individual freedoms, which is why they want a limited government. It was invented in the late 20th century as neoliberalism, so a re-emergence of classical liberalism came about. And you can see this from the policies that Thatcher had and the sort of new right movement. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail later. And they believe in negative freedom and self-reliance. So from the videos you watched before, negative freedom is when you're free to do as you please. There is no restrictions on you from the state. Even if you do something that actually is harmful to yourself, you know, classical liberals believe that you have the right to choose and that you have the freedom to choose. They believe in self-reliance, so you are responsible for yourself and your individual choices. It's not the responsibility of the government or the state to make decisions for you. And this contrasts with the modern liberalism, which is liberalism associated with the 20th century. Modern liberals want to regulate capitalism to prevent deprivation. So they actually think the state should intervene. So it's less restricted than classical liberalism. Actually, the government has a responsibility to not get rid of capitalism, but moderate it and make sure that it doesn't become too pervasive. And they think that, high levels of inequality that capitalism produces should be controlled by the state. They think that you can't be free if you're left entirely alone to your own devices and to make your own decisions. And that's because people tend to make choices, regarding their health in particular, that aren't necessarily in their best interest. So they believe in positive freedom, whereby the state enables us to be free. It makes some decisions on our behalf to try and ensure maximum freedom. So there is a clip here. So you want to get this clip up and watch it. I would play it as part of this video, but unfortunately it means the video runs too long and then I can't upload it and share it with you. So you have to watch that yourself. So pause this video, have a look at that clip, and then come back to this. So just to recap on negative and positive liberty. So I've got some examples here and they're all muddled. So what I'd like you to do, again, now that you've watched the clip, you can pause the video and see if you can sort these headline statements and images into the two examples of negative and positive freedom. So have a go at doing that, and then I'll go through the answers. So the examples of negative or classical liberalism, rolling back the state. This is a phrase that is mostly associated with Thatcherism. So it means withdrawing the state from our lives, essentially, rolling it back. So having less state intervention. This phrase, I'm sure we've all heard this phrase before, survival of the fittest. This is something classical liberals believe in. They think that actually the fittest will survive. Those that make the right choices will go on and be successful, and those that don't will fail. And that's how we learn how to live. This headline here, tax cut for the rich means billions lost to exchequer. Now, this is an example of classical liberalism because, again, taxes are a way of the state intervening in our lives and we redistributing wealth between us. So anything that kind of minimises taxes is an example of classical liberalism because we're withdrawing the state's intervention in our lives. They discourage a dependency culture. So dependency culture means or refers to when people are reliant on the government for help. So they rely on the government perhaps for benefits to live or housing. So they want to try and discourage this and make people more individualistic, make them more independent. So you can have a government. They're not saying we should get rid of the government entirely, and they're not saying we should get rid of benefits entirely, but they're saying that we should try to discourage people from trying to have benefits. They want them to perhaps have the minimal possible so that they're encouraged to go back out to work and become independent again. Again, yep, they focus on self-reliance, which we sort of talked about already. Now this headline, number of council homes sold off under right to buy increases fivefold in 6 years after Tories lift cap. Now, the right to buy scheme was where people who lived in council homes were given the opportunity to buy their council home from the government at a reduced cost. So the Conservatives, enabled more people to buy their council homes. Now, on the one hand, this is an example of classical liberalism because it's showing how people can become independent and not rely on the state. If I buy a council home, I then become a property owner and I am independent. I'm not relying on the government anymore for housing. On the other hand, you could say it's modern liberalism because the state is enabling somebody to become free. They're giving them that opportunity. They're reducing the cost of the house in the first place so that they can become free. So some would say it's examples of positive freedom. Some would say it's an example of negative. Not all examples are completely clear-cut. Another example of positive is the smoking ban. So obviously in the past, you could smoke wherever you liked. Now we can't smoke indoors. And this ban is largely an example of positive freedom because you're restricting someone's freedom by telling them that they can't smoke. But at the same time, it's positive, isn't it? Because you're actually enabling them to be free. You're trying to stop them from having health problems that will lead them to be not free later on. So that's why that's positive. All of these benefits can be described as positive because they're all enabling someone to be free. Supporting someone financially leads them to having a more independent life. Qualified state intervention. What I mean by qualified state intervention is that it's not just state intervention for the sake of it. There is a significant, strong reason why the state would intervene. The term developmental individualism, this is any kind of policy that the government introduces that enables us to become who we want to be, enable us to develop as individuals. So, for example, you could argue that the bursary scheme at sixth form is an example of developmental individualism. It's a scheme that gives students money to become who they want to be. And then finally, we can say the NHS is arguably an example of positive liberty. The NHS gives us lots of guidance to live our lives, eat 5 fruit and veg a day, get exercise regularly, don't smoke, don't drink, etc. Those kinds of pieces of advice are examples of positive liberty. They're trying to control us, but for a good reason, to enable us to be free so that we don't become alcoholics or drug users, because those things will prevent us being free. So, minimal versus enabling state. I'm just going to give you some information, and there is a video at the end that I would like you to watch. So, minimal state, this is what classical liberals want. They want what they describe as a night watchman state. So if you imagine a night watchman, it's basically one person looking out over a building or an area just to make sure that there's no disorder, no one breaks into the building, and to defend it. Okay, and they think this is what the role of the state should be. We should have a state that is like a night watchman to make sure that we don't all, fight each other, make sure that we all abide by any contracts that we've made with each other, and to defend us against external attacks from outside of the country. Classical liberals also advocate social Darwinism, so that concept of survival of the fittest. Spencer said that there would be a gradual elimination of those who are unable to enjoy individualism. So government shouldn't intervene to support those people because eventually, they will die out. So in your notes, you might want to answer those two questions. You can copy that information, but it would help you to answer them. So why do they think classical liberals believe in minimal state intervention? Why is it that they think that government shouldn't intervene in our lives? How does supporting the most disadvantaged limit the freedom of others? So think about if we support those that perhaps are unemployed, those that perhaps have physical disabilities or learning disabilities. What happens if you support those people? How will it limit the individualism and freedom of those who are ultimately paying tax to support them? So then we've got the enabling state. So modern liberals think that our state should be an enabling state. And what that means is that it's enabling us to be free. So they're intervening in our lives to help us. So obviously, therefore, they see a larger role for government to ensure that individuals can achieve their potential. They believe welfare can bring about equality of opportunity. So equality of opportunity is when everyone's got the same chance to be successful. And if you've got a welfare state that perhaps provides assistance financially, it gives people the opportunity, levels the playing field a little bit. But they remain indifferent to inequality of outcomes. So they don't really care that somebody perhaps might not get the same outcome as another person. So for example, in education, in the enabling state, we would have things in place to ensure that all students have the same chance of getting good A-levels. But the fact that students get different grades on their A-levels is not important to modern liberals. So here's a clip on the Beveridge report. Now, the Beveridge report is a report that was released by a liberal politician, William Beveridge, and he essentially advocated a reorganisation of the welfare state. It was a very radical document because essentially he was saying we should have a national health service, we should have an enhanced welfare system that supports those who are unemployed, and it was the first of its kind. So have a quick look at that video. It's a sort of historical video that'll help you to understand that a bit more. Think about how taxation and more tax and state spending could actually create equality of opportunity. How does that actually level the playing field? How does having a free health service mean that we all have similar chances of success? So I've got two cartoons here just to illustrate some of the things we've been talking about. The one at the top, on the left, welfare state begins, so you can see everyone's pulling those two that are in the cart, and they seem happy to do so. And then on the right, you can see how the welfare state, and it seems that most people have jumped on the bandwagon. There's a minority now pulling along those few people, and they don't look very happy about it either. So this is really what classical liberals think. They think state intervention is problematic because it will eventually lead to most people relying on state to help them rather than being independent. So, they're quite critical of state intervention. And then the cartoon on the left, we can see the difference between equality of opportunity. You can see the top, they've all got the same starting point in the race. And then equality of outcome, well, they'll end the race at different points. And liberals, they don't mind this. Modern liberals essentially just want that the first picture is how our society is. We all got the same chance to run the race of life. It doesn't matter if someone ends up more successful than another, as long as they all have the same chance to succeed. In terms of the economy, classical and modern liberals differ quite a bit. Classical liberals believe in laissez-faire economics, which is this word here. And it's a French term meaning, let it be or or let the market be free. So it's assuming that the market or the economy will run well by itself. It doesn't need the government to intervene in it to make it run well. And Adam Smith is one of the key thinkers of this laissez-faire approach to the economy. He believes in something called the invisible hand of market forces. The invisible hand is almost like a guide. It's guiding the economy forwards. I think in the previous PowerPoint, there was a video on Adam Smith. If you haven't watched it, let me know and I can send it to you again. Wealth that's acquired by individuals would trickle down to the rest of the population. That's what laissez-faire classical liberals, that's what they think happens in this system. If you've got somebody who's very rich, it doesn't matter that they've become rich, because ultimately they're going to pay tax, and then that tax will help support those who are lower down the social order. And also, if you think about if a business does really well, ultimately it's going to need to hire more people. That leads to more employment. If people are employed, it means they've got more money to spend, and eventually the rest of the population will become wealthy too. Classical liberals also believe in an end of tariffs and duties to allow free trade. So they see supranational organisations like the EU as an obstacle to free trade, which is kind of ironic, really, because the EU has a free trade system. But actually, if you look at, from our standpoint now, as a separate country to the EU, there are obstacles. To trade with the EU, you have to meet certain rules. Your products have to meet certain standards, and so these kinds of tariffs, duties should be ended to enable free trade. So modern liberals take a slightly different approach. They have an economic approach known as Keynesianism. So it's named after this guy here, John Maynard Keynes. This is where the government intervenes in the economy when things are perhaps not going well. So if there's high unemployment, the government would intervene to try and stimulate the economy to get businesses employing more people. If the economy is shrinking, they might spend more money on public services to try and encourage the economy to grow. So public spending from government is needed to create jobs and stimulate the economy. So if you think about a project like Crossrail, Crossrail is an example of where the government has spent lots of money and it's helped create lots of jobs. So if the government sees the economy isn't doing so well, it can intervene. They like organisations like the EU because they think ultimately they're interventionists. They will, intervene in the economy to get it running. Now, watch this clip on John Maynard Keynes. It explains his ideas in a bit more detail, and if you could make some notes on it, that would be great. If you get questions, just So, the state, the economy, human nature or freedom, these are things that hopefully you looked at before when you looked at the pre-tuned videos. Just a point on essays, you could be asked a question on one of these areas in particular. So I just want to go through similarities and differences because that's what all the exam questions are based on. Do liberals all agree on these things? So in terms of similarities, we can say that they all believe individuals are rational beings, they're all intelligent, and they all prioritise personal happiness and development, wanting to develop individually. They all believe society is made up of a diverse range of individuals that are trying to seek fulfilment. They all believe the state is necessary and should function according to pre-arranged and agreed procedures. What that means is essentially having a codified constitution where all of the rules are written down in a single source and are entrenched so they can't be changed easily. All liberals believe the economy should be based on private property, and they encourage people to have private property because it's an expression of our individualism. When I, what clothes I choose to wear, what house I buy, what car I buy is an expression of me as a person. And they think that that's a good thing because they encourage individualism, as we know. Differences. Classical theorists believe these qualities are innate, so they're actually part of human nature. We're born with them. But modern theorists believe they are potential qualities that can be developed. They don't believe that there's something natural within us. They have to be encouraged by the state. Modern liberals believe that individuals in society are less autonomous and they need the state to guide them. But classical liberals, individuals need minimal state intervention to flourish. So they've got that dilemma as to whether you take on a positive liberal stance or a negative liberal stance. And classical liberals believe in laissez-faire economics, whereas modern liberals believe in Keynesian economics. And obviously that affects the amount of intervention that the government takes on the economy, with Keynesian economists wanting lots of intervention and laissez-faire free market economists like Adam Smith wanting minimal state intervention in the economy. So neoliberalism, as I said before, is a re-emergence of classical liberalism in modern day society. So I've sent you pictures of page 37 to 38. Have a read of those and see if you can answer these questions about what makes neoliberalism a distinctive branch, why did it come about, and why are sometimes they described as conservatives. And when we come on to conservatism, we are going to return back to neoliberalism and also look at the new right perspective. So finally, what I'd like you to do is, as a task, is to make a crib sheet of information on things you have learned so far about liberalism. So obviously you can use the PowerPoints that I've sent, but also if you can use the online textbook, that will help you, because I've sent you some pictures of the textbook that you're going to get a copy of. It doesn't have everything that I've sent. So have a look on the Pearson website. I've put the username and password down at the bottom so that you can access that. That's all we're going to cover today. Well done, everyone. I know it's really difficult getting all this work done and motivating ourselves to do the work independently. I'm always here at the end of the emails, so if you have any problems, do email me. Take care and keep washing your hands, and I'll send you another PowerPoint soon. Bye.